Morning. Happy International Workers' Day, or as some call it, May Day. Uh, it's my sunrise report. And, well, let's first of all go over May Day is an ancient Northern Hemisphere spring festival, which I guess was on the 1st of May. I don't know for what reason. I guess it was easy to mark it on the calendar. I don't know if it was on a different day in Russia, because Russia used the Julian calendar, I guess, till a century or so ago, before the communists took over, but that doesn't really matter. I know May Day was a big deal in the Soviet Union, traditionally dancing, singing, cake. You want to have some fun, watch the Men Without Hats safety dance video, which has nothing to do with, the song has nothing to do about May Day, but I think it's sort of a May Day theme around the flagpole, whatever. And a good video, good song. A little background about why it's International Workers' Day and why, no doubt, it costs Soros a lot of money because he funds protests today, whatever. But it originated in 1884. I got this from Wikipedia. There was a convention held by the Federation of Organized Trades and Labor Unions. They set May 1st, 1886 as the day by which the 8-hour workday would become standard. Interesting. I think they probably would have settled for a 10 or 12-hour day around then. As the chosen date approached, U.S. labor unions prepared for a general strike in support of the 8-hour day. Now, I imagine there were a lot of instigators even back then, even though people really weren't familiar with communism per se, but it's not like communism grew out of nowhere. And there were some noble roots. Workers at that time wasn't just a euphemism for snowflakes, communists. The workers often really were workers, a lot of whom, in the case of Chicago, for example, were Irish immigrants. But anyhow, on Saturday, May 1st, thousands of workers went on strike. Well, I guess they had to work on Saturdays to go on strike on a Saturday. And rallies were held throughout the U.S. In Chicago, that's where they had the Haymarket riot, the Haymarket Rebellion, but that was 3 days later. Basically, the workers didn't just make tweets about Trump on Twitter and put pictures of themselves on Instagram protesting. They really circled the wagons, dug their heels in, and there was some conflict between them and the police, the Pinkertons, etc. In the end, there was a bomb that went off on May 4th. 7 policemen, at least 4 workers killed. Another policeman died 2 years later from the complications. 60 police were wounded in the incident. And then there were plenty more people on the side of the workers or the demonstrators who were wounded, etc., but a lot of them wanted to lay low because they feared arrest. So then, by the late 19th century, May 1st, which is when all that began, it was chosen as the date for International Workers' Day by the socialist and communist movements, which have never really gone away, but it was to commemorate the Haymarket affair. So there is a connection between that. It's not like May 1st was the day for strikes and demonstrations before that time. So I thought that was a little interesting. Now, you're familiar with what communism, socialism have led to since then. Obviously, 100 million fewer people were killed by communism as of 1884 than now, in wonderful places like Russia, China, Vietnam. Cuba was pretty brutal too, but to the total number of 100 million, it really didn't add the numbers that Russia, China, and hey, Pol Pot did his thing in a small country. But this is just a really interesting thing that was shared with me by Keith Levenberg about political correctness and how it's connected to communism. It's just a very interesting thought and a great essay, which I've linked there for you. Just read it. I often will read from things, but the point is to get you to read the original. And so this is just a small part of an interview in 2005, summer of 2005, done by Jamie Glossoff at Front Page Magazine, which is David Horowitz's thing. David Horowitz is a former communist, former leftist leader who sort of saw the light, or at least maybe saw the green, if you know what I mean, in the other side. So let me just read you this part, and you can maybe process it. Political correctness is Political correctness is communist propaganda writ small. In my study of communist societies, I came to the conclusion that the purpose of communist propaganda was not to persuade or convince, nor to inform, but to humiliate. And therefore, the less it corresponded to reality, the better. When people are forced to remain silent when they are being told the most obvious lies. Think about some of these transgender things. Think about so much about what we hear from colleges, universities, which is complete BS that you're paying $60,000, or your parents or the government or the debt and the taxpayers eventually are paying $60,000 a year for. When people are forced to remain silent when they are being told the most obvious lies, or even worse, when they are forced to repeat the lies themselves, they lose once and for all their sense of probity. Probity, if you don't know that word. Is it pronounced probity or probity? To assent to obvious lies is to cooperate with evil, and in some small way to become evil oneself. One's standing to resist anything is thus eroded and even destroyed. A society of emasculated liars is easy to control. I think if you examine political correctness, it has the same effect and is intended to. I'm going to read that again, not just because I messed up a few words in there, even though I still don't know whether it's pronounced probity or probity, but just for emphasis, I'm going to reread this as part of my May Day coverage. Again, from Theodore Dalrymple, and the link is right up there. Political correctness is communist propaganda writ small. In my study of communist societies, I came to the conclusion that the purpose of communist propaganda was not to persuade or convince, nor to inform, but to humiliate. And therefore, the less it corresponded to reality, the better. When people are forced to remain silent, when they are being told the most obvious lies, or even worse, when they are forced to repeat the lies themselves, they lose once and for all their sense of probity. To assent to obvious lies is to cooperate with evil, and in some small way to become evil oneself. One's standing to resist anything is thus eroded and even destroyed. A society of emasculated, great choice of words there, a society of emasculated liars is easy to control. I think if you examine political correctness, it has the same effect and is intended to. And there's a lot of other great material in that interview, which I've given you the link for as well, such as about a variety of topics, such as how the architecture of St. Petersburg, Russia, was designed to intimidate the individual and to prevent crowds from being able to gather spontaneously. It has stuff in there about the destruction of childhood. It has stuff in there about the so-called feminists and why they're so quiet about the abuse of women, and what so-called religion I'm talking about. And also how the would-be avoidance of boredom leads to self-destructiveness in people who have no transcendent purpose in all their lives. Quite a mouthful there. Worthwhile essay, go read it. Happy May Day, and the sun is out, so I'll give you a quick look at the Florida sun. There you go. Happy May Day. Happy May Day. Happy International Workers' Day.